All right, so with that said, I don't have any other announcements at this point at least, but I will be back up here throughout the night. But to formally kick us off tonight, we have our Assistant Chief, Niemczyk is here with us tonight for the City of Port St. Lucie Police Department. And just before he formally comes up here, I just want to mention that the mission of the police department is the following. Through courage, knowledge, and integrity, the Port St. Lucie Police Department is committed to superior customer service and remaining one of America's safest cities. Some of the values of the City of Port St. Lucie Police Department include service to our community, ethical and moral conduct, respect for people, and empowerment. So without further ado, to formally introduce his department and his staff, please help me in welcoming Assistant Chief Niemczyk. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. So I tend to walk around the room a little bit, and so you got to keep active, although I have to step back to control the slides. As stated, I'm Leo Niemczyk, an assistant chief here, and today is my work anniversary at the city. It's 21 years. Thanks. Prior to coming to work for the City of Port St. Lucie, I was a New York City police officer. Thank you. Worked there for 8 years, and I was just speaking to 2 officers who are going to be sworn in next week a little while ago, and I told them the story of 21 years ago when I came in and I met with Chief John Skinner here, and he said to me, this is a very fast-growing police department. The city is booming. We're going to be over 90,000 people before you know it here. The agency is going to grow by 20 to 30 police officers over the next 5 years, so you're coming at a great time. There's going to be a ton of opportunity for you. And I'm thinking back, everything he said was true. He said, there's nothing that can stop me here but myself. And I'd say 21 years later, I did pretty well. I moved through the ranks. I never imagined becoming assistant chief or a chief here one day. It just kind of worked out that way. I just kept taking one step and trying to better myself. And one thing leads to another, and wow, like here. And I found myself giving these 2 officers the same speech I got 21 years ago. I say, hey, the city's booming right now. We just passed 239,000 people. It's going to be 400,000 people in the next 5 years. I say, can you imagine that? Right now we're onboarding 12 new guys. We're going to hire another 20 next year. Nothing can stop you here but you. And I said, wow, this is really ironic. But it's true, and it was true back then, and it's true today, and I think that's really amazing. And, I share the difference between working for New York City and Port St. Lucie with them. And I want to explain that the day I got hired here, I remember feeling like I just got hired by IBM, and I was working in a Fortune 500 company, because in New York City, I was a number on a ledger line, and nobody knew who you were, nobody appreciated it, nobody really cared. The residents didn't particularly like us, so the working environment was hostile at best. It was just, we had the worst equipment, the worst training, and I know people believe that that's the opposite in New York City, but it's true. The city was broke, and we had to make do with really lousy equipment and training and the working conditions. So when I came to work here, I was like, this is really amazing. And I really felt like the community loved us and supported us, and I felt like my employer, for the first time in my life, I remember saying, wow, I'm appreciated. I got an email this morning from, I don't know, a water cooler automated system congratulating me on my work anniversary. I wouldn't have known that it was a work anniversary had that not happened. I met with the city manager this morning, and he knew that off the top of his head. I got another email from HR, a few months back saying happy birthday. And it's just really a fabulous place to work. And I bet you're hearing that as you go through different interactions within the city. So our current executive command staff, you have the acting chief, Richard Del Toro, myself, and acting assistant chief DeMeo. So Boulevard kind of spoiled this for me a little bit. But I wanted to talk briefly about the mission statement, because I think it's really important in an organization if you practice what you preach and you actually take the time to remind everybody what our mission is. We have this plastered up all over the walls throughout the building in different conference rooms and key locations. And if you look at our patch on the side, it says courage, knowledge, and integrity. That's something that was handed down to us by the founders of the police department. They came up with that, and that was kind of the original mission statement. And when we wrote this one in 2012, when the organization went through a reorganization, we wrote this mission statement, and we basically took the courage, knowledge, and integrity. We put the Port St. Lucie Police Department is committed to superior customer service and remaining one of America's safest cities, because we believe in the superior customer service. And I think we practice it in this police department better than, I'm not bragging, better than the other departments in the city, although they're striving and they're absolutely heading in the right direction. We absolutely despise bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is designed to slow down progress and to avoid telling people yes and avoid providing answers. We hold everybody here from the top down accountable for getting back to our residents. We get reached out to probably dozens of times every day from outside the organization with questions. We get a lot of them through the 1PSL app, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with now. We respond to those. Any phone call we get, we respond within 24 hours, and we hold everybody accountable for that. We take it very, very seriously because who likes bureaucracy? Nobody, right? And you know something? We realize that we have competition, and there's a sheriff's office up on Midway Road. And if we did a lousy job as a police department, what would the public want to do? They would want to turn on us and go to the council and say, hey, we want them. We don't want that to happen. We want you guys to love us, and we want, we really appreciate that. And that's why we call residents customers, because it's about an attitude. You're not a citizen, you're not a resident, you are our customer, and we are here to serve. Sound good? A little history on the police department. Now, this is before I was even in policing. 1980, I believe I was in the 6th grade. But our first headquarters when the department was established was right over next to City Hall in a small building that no longer exists. And I can't believe we don't have a better picture of it than that at this point. But it was before the internet, it was before digital cameras. It was, that's probably an old one-step picture that degraded over the years. And that lasted till '86, and then the department was booming and growing up to 23 people, I think we had at the time. So they built that building that's over at the, we call it MLS, our complex where we do all the vehicle and fleet maintenance, and utilities has a building there. That building still stands, but it's not the police department anymore. And then that served until '91 when this headquarters was completed. We have outgrown this building already. We are, sticking people in closets and coming up with creative ways to house different people within the department, but we try our best to keep most people on the street that we can, but that's just one of the challenges we're facing. I'm going to talk about how we're coping with that a little bit further in my presentation. By the way, guys, feel free to stop and ask questions. I like the interaction, and it helps me kill a little time too, so. We are a nationally and state accredited agency. Accreditation is very, very important, and very few agencies in the country are accredited, and even fewer are both nationally and state accredited. We take great pride in accreditation. Why is it important? Because in policing, when you have an agency that doesn't have best practices, established practices in its organization, you tend to have problems. Things go wrong. Accreditation manages, well, I won't say manage, but we have to meet several hundred standards to be accredited. So every agency has a book that's about this fat, but now it's all on computer, right? In New York City, our book was that fat, and we weren't even accredited. With procedures, and those procedures are all established as best practices on a national level. So we know that when we go out and we handle situations, we're not making the rules up as we go. We're not making the game up as we go. We're going about business in a way that is nationally and state certified as the best current practice in law enforcement. Does that make sense? Now, you see a lot of problems on TV or whatever throughout the world. Usually those are agencies that aren't accredited, although things can go wrong in any place. Not clicking here. Here's the current organizational chart of the agency. So you have the chief of department overseeing everything, right? And we have 2 assistant chief positions. So we have the Neighborhood Policing Bureau and we have the Support Services Bureau. I'm currently overseeing Support Services Bureau. So I have the Criminal Investigations Division, Special Investigations Division, which is narcotics, vice. We also have the Operations Department that handles the facilities, the fleet, the business aspect of the department, and also animal control, which I didn't really know a lot about, and I'm still learning. And I also oversee collective bargaining. We have 7 unions throughout the city. I believe 7. 1 just got decertified, I believe. So I think we might be down to 6. So every 3 years, we have to renegotiate contracts with each of the unions, and I oversee that process as well. You have Neighborhood Policing Bureau, and Neighborhood Policing Bureau is what you would assume is patrol, everybody out on patrol. So we have the 2 regions right now. We have Eastern Region, Western Region. Our long-term goal for this police department in the next couple of years is to break the regions up. And so we have 5 districts, and we want to put 1 commander over each district to decrease the span of control and allow more time for mentoring and teaching and training. And also we want those commanders or captains to get out to the community. We want to expand the community-oriented policing aspect of the department, and that's, you think about, at the officer level, but really it's supposed to be up the ranks. So the higher in rank you are in the agency, the larger the audience you're responsible for getting in front of on a regular basis. So captains would be attending HOA meetings within their districts and any large, community concerns that are put together, they would be responsible for those as well. Professional standards goes directly to the chief. Professional standards includes internal affairs, accreditation, recruiting, and training section, and property, which is, the evidence section. Have you guys, you're gonna hear about that later. Okay, that's where we keep all the stuff that we get. Things that come into our possession through crime scenes or recovered found property and that kind of thing. Any questions on the organization? Yes, please.
Where's your 911 center? Who dispatches your calls?
So St. Lucie County Public Safety Department, so they oversee 911. So they service us, Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County Sheriff, and the Fire Department, St. Lucie County. So that's a beast of an operation to run. Yeah. So fortunately, we don't have to run our own, and we're able to share that expense and burden with the other agencies. Good? Demographics of the police department, not the community. I don't find these terribly interesting, but they are what they are. We're 8.5% African American. We have a 16.3% Hispanic. We actually have 2 Native American officers, putting us at 0.7%, and we're 72% white and 2.1% others. Ideally, an agency's demographics is reflective of the community it's serving. That's always our objective. It's not easy to do because people are coming and going all the time, and right now we're experiencing unprecedented retirement. So, you want to hire the most qualified, best candidates you can get your hands on. And you have to hire people because you have to run the police department. So you can't say, well, I'm going to leave this position vacant until I find myself 2 Native Americans. It's hard. It's hard. So we do our best. But the Obama administration 21st century study on policing provided 6 pillars, and one of them provides for, the department reflecting the community. So it's one of our objectives and something we strive to line up with. So the police department has a $66 million budget as of 22-23 budget year. And most of that goes salaries and benefits. Operating expenses takes up another large chunk, the next largest chunk, which is going to be, for the most part, fleet, operations, uniforms, equipment that we use, that type of thing. And then our capital outlay is things that we've budgeted the prior year for major purchases. So, and this year we're getting a new patrol boat. And that's part of that. I saw a funny look. Right now the city is putting a lot of effort into expanding the port. You guys have you seen that yet? And yeah. So, well, guess what? We need to be on the water. And we need to be able to respond to incidents out there. So our patrol boat is a 1982 Sea Fox that sunk twice. Yeah, so we're going to have to replace that. So that type of purchase would be in capital outlay. Questions on budgeting? Boring stuff, right? I mean, I actually find it very, very interesting. The process is something else. The Support Services Bureau, I think there's a very good-looking assistant chief in the Support Services Bureau. As I mentioned when I talked about the chart, but any questions about the Criminal Investigations Division or what we do on that side of the house? I saw someone almost ask me one. Volunteers, we have 165 volunteers that provide 4,000 volunteer hours per year. And think about what that would cost us to pay employees to do. It's incredible the services that the volunteers provide for us. So I always like to make sure we put them up and talk about them and say, hey, if you got nothing to do, you give us a call. We got stuff for you to do. So we'd love to have your help.
What do they do?
They volunteer for stuff. No. So if you walk into the police department, we just until recently had greeters in our lobby, so they were always here. But we have volunteers that process a lot of paperwork here that are certified to do that. We have volunteers that work in the Criminal Investigation Division. We have a volunteer that works with the sex offender coordinator, who keeps everybody registered and in line with. We have another volunteer who does all the elimination fingerprinting for Criminal Investigation Division. So actually for any crime where there's a burglary of a house or a residence or building, a car, he'll go out and fingerprint the victims and bring those cards in. We enter in our computer. That way we can make sure, okay, these prints that we recover at the scene don't belong to the owner of the property. So he does that frequently. I mean, it's unbelievable. They work with the Police Athletic League programs. It's just countless. You can go on and on. And you know what? It's not always the most exciting, exotic police work either. I do a lot of stuff that, frees up officers to do other things. So, Neighborhood Policing Bureau, there's a lot of exciting stuff. It's where all the action is. Obviously, your patrol function, you have your SWAT team, you have your K-9s, and crossing guards. Crossing guards are incredible. So action photos, I forgot the motor unit, bike unit. I think the Marine Patrol's next. So there's our old 1982 boat. We work really, really hard to keep it afloat, but it's time. It's time to reply. Honor Guard. All part of the Neighborhood Policing Bureau. So here's the city broken down into patrol districts. So this is the east side of the city. This will be the west side of the city. You've got the C-24 canal, and you've got I-95, and you got Florida's. Am I looking wrong? Yes. Okay. So C-24 canal will be right here. Then you've got this coming out of South Bend, and then this will be the turnpike right here. So the newest district, District 5, is where all the action is right now, where all the building and growth is going on. And we added 12 police officers to work 2 districts on 3 shifts last year, and 12 more are going on this year to get us a total of 4 patrol districts. So that's where all the growth is going on. Questions on that?
That's a low crime area, though.
Which part? District 5?
Yeah.
The whole city's a low crime area, sir.
Yeah.
That's because We're so good at what we do. We take great pride in that, yeah. But low crime doesn't mean low calls for service. It doesn't mean low demand for police services. We get called for all kinds of things on a daily basis that aren't crime related. And, we pride ourselves on having a 5-minute response time to calls for service. And in order to do that, we need to have our officer per 1,000 residents level acceptable. So right now we're at 1.3 officers per 1,000, and our goal is to get to 1.6.
Berkshire and Melaleuca, there was a proposed safety building for out there, but that's been scrapped because of all the emphasis going on tradition, no?
Well, not really. The plan is to put a substation in the city center location. That's
There already is one there, isn't
well, there is a substation, but it's not
it?
operational.
Not open to the public.
Right. But the plan is to put one there when that place is built up. So we're excited about that. But you know what also we're learning is that buildings don't really provide extra service by adding buildings because everything is now automated and internet-based. So we deploy our police officers, they stay out in the area they work all day long. They don't come here. They don't need to come here for paper purposes. They don't need to come here for restrooms. They just don't. So they're out in the areas that they work. So whether there's a building there or not doesn't really affect customer service, is what we're learning.
You're a response police department, not really a patrol police department. I've
We're
been
both.
told.
Well, I don't think that's a fair statement. No, I
I'll
mean,
sit on my front porch and watch you go by. That doesn't happen very often.
I think that's a perception. I can't tell you how many times a patrol car will go down to any given street at any given time. But if you're in a neighborhood that, say, isn't experiencing a crime wave or a pattern, we're not going to deploy there for no reason. So how we respond is when we detect every day the crime analysis, review all the reports from the prior day. And when we detect an area where we're having a series of crimes, say car burglaries is the most common one that we'll get, then our resources in that area will be in a square mile where those crimes are occurring. So unless you call and say, hey, I need somebody over here, you're right. You're going to see a random patrol unless there are no crime patterns going on, in which case it is a random patrol. So it's kind of a hybrid. You follow?
Like my Ring doorbell.
We love your Ring doorbell. We use them to solve crimes all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're very good.
They are excellent. And not only that, Ring works with us and gives us access to a lot of those portals. So when we have a crime or in the neighborhood or in a street, we can just plug into that street and we can access all the Ring cameras that have uploaded data. And we identify vehicles and suspects all the time.
Okay. But Ring is the one that makes the determination if there's increased crime in your neighborhood. It doesn't come from the police department.
I disagree with you 100% on that, sir. Our crime analysts make that determination.
Really?
Yeah.
They have input into
Yeah.
it then? So it's not just a private entity that's...
No, they're just providing a service essentially. So they collect all the information and they make it available to us and we can use it to help us, assist us in solving crimes for sure.
That's a big help.
It is a big help. Technology has changed a lot when it comes to criminal investigation. Not only that, just the types of crimes we experience. COVID also had an effect on the type of crime that we're seeing on the street. But nowadays, we used to get kids running around pulling door handles on cars all the time. Well, that's a burglary when they take something out of an unlocked car. But they're becoming fewer and further between, not only because of our response, but also because, well, they know there are cameras on almost every house now. And we catch them that way. We catch them that way all the time, smiling while they're opening your car door and taking something out. Our strategic initiatives are set for us by City Council. And we have some very specific ones that we're currently working on. Obviously, our goal is to always say safe, clean, and beautiful for the city of Port St. Lucie. And the police department's got to implement District 5, which is a directive which we're accomplishing this year with the addition of 12 new officers and 6 sergeants. We're working to reduce and improve traffic and bicycle safety for pedestrians. The police training facility, which is when I said I was going to get back to you on where we're outgrowing our space here in this building. And recruitment and retention, because we're booming and growing so rapidly, we had to refocus on the way we were going about hiring people. I'd like to talk a little bit about the training facility. The training facility is going to go right beside the police department, in between us and the building part next door. Right now, it's planned to be about 40,000 square feet. It's going to house our own firearms facility, and also our training space for in-service trainings. Right now, when we want to go outside, when we want to train, we don't have our own firearms range, but we have to qualify a certain amount of times a year in order to be certified and keep our certifications up. And we also have to do a lot of in-service training and with repetitive use of force, subject resistance, the tactics that we use on the street. Well, where are we going to do this? It takes space. Well, we have to coordinate with other agencies that do have facilities and borrow their space when they're not using it, which, as you can imagine, is tricky. But the larger the agency gets, the more time we need and the harder it is to accommodate this. So right now we have to go up to Indian River State College and use their firearms range. As far as defensive tactics, we borrow space from the POW building out east and go roll around on their mats. But logistically, that's very difficult to do, is to schedule and then get people off-site. It takes time and it's not very efficient. So by having our own training facility right next door, we're able to break out on our fat days, which is Wednesday, when both squads are working. And you can take one whole squad and send them over there and train, break them off for a couple hours. So we can, by doing that, we can have training regularly every other week, which is incredible because right now we're not getting that done maybe every 6 months. And we want to be the best trained and the best at what we do. So it's imperative that we get that done. And it's going to be a showplace. It's going to be a hub for training for other agencies to come here and micro-train with us. And that way we can facilitate training and we can get trainers from the outside to come in and we get free training now because we're providing the facility and other people are coming in and paying. So it works out really, really well for us.
Is it open to the public?
No.
That was a quick answer.
No. That would be chaotic. And then we have the same problem we're having now where we can't get our own space when we need it. Recruitment and retention, we took a hard look at that earlier this year and came to a realization that we're not lacking in applicants the way that we thought we were. We have the applicants and we're getting good applicants. The problem is we're going about doing their background investigations and hiring them kind of in an antiquated fashion that we've never revisited since we began doing business in the 80s around here. And we just went back and said, all right, well, how can we streamline this? I think probably the biggest example of how we streamline it is we have to do a very sophisticated background investigation on everybody. And in order to do that, we need to get a bunch of information from people, down to every job you've ever had, every employer you've ever worked for, marriage license, the list goes on. And what we would do is we would hand you a packet, a piece of paper and say, you need to go out and fill out this packet, come back to us, and then we can start your background investigation. What we found out is it takes 3 months for people to take that packet, go home, and find all that information, and then get it back to you. Well, in 3 months, we were losing candidates to other agencies, and it was just a very slow and tedious process. So we put together we call it a recruiting lab, which is on the second floor. I don't know if you guys are going to get a chance to see it or not. But it's a room designed to make people feel very welcome, like they're walking into the Fortune 500 company, like I mentioned earlier, and get that 3-month procedure done in one afternoon. So we say, look, you're coming in for this process on this date, bring this information with you. And we sit them down, instead of sitting there with a piece of paper, they're on an iPad essentially, entering all the information that they were told to bring with them. Now they leave, we've just knocked 3 months down to one afternoon. So we're finding that we're much more effective in our hiring by just streamlining and revisiting the same old status quo. Because if we're not getting better, we're getting worse. Any questions on any of those folks? How am I doing on time? Good? Mark?
You have a question?
Yes.
What is your retention rate?
Retire early, that's a trick question because we have something called the drop. So essentially, when you achieve retirement age, as far as the pension is concerned, you can now enter the drop. So you're retiring per the pension, but you remain for up to 5 more years. So it becomes a one bad day away retirement kind of situation. So instead of collecting their pension gets diverted into a 457 or 401 account, and they still continue to work for 5 years and get up to 5 years and get paid. So we're finding people are starting to stay longer, but we have a higher rate of people now hitting retirement age. We have 27 officers in the drop program right now. So at any day, they could come in and decide to pull the plug, but I'm finding that most of them want to stay for every nickel. And, and they tend to do the 5 years. So it's not like we have any difficulty projecting when people are going to be leaving. This younger generation, I find a little bit different. You know, when I came on, you got that job and you kept that job and you stayed with that job and you retired from that job and you cherished that job. They're not so much like that anymore. They kind of try the career out. You know, we had an officer come on 2 weeks ago who came in, went out for 2 days and said, this isn't for me, and pulled the plug. Just like that, you know. So we're seeing a lot more of that, people coming for 2, 3, 5 years and moving on to a different career altogether, which it's kind of unprecedented. So the idea is to have a lot of those people in the works, in the hiring process, so we can just bring them on board when we need to. The trick about hiring police officers is training, because you can't just take somebody off the street and put them in a police car. You have to get them certified and trained. So not only does it take 6 months to get certified in one of the academies, but then you have to come in and it takes about 3 months to get trained in our way of doing things and making sure that you're up to snuff here. So it's a constant challenge. What's that?
In the last 2 weeks, you spent all that.
Right, that's not the norm. That's not the norm.
Hopefully by then, thanks.
Right, so Mark Twain said there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. So I decided to put some statistics into this for you, but our statistics aren't lies. They just are what they are, you know, and we just use that information that we get in order to be more effective in what we do as far as crime fighting. This simple one here is the population growth, just to give you an idea of how rapidly we've grown and what kind of challenge that presents to the city and the police department and our community. And the other one is criminal clearance rate on index crimes. Index crimes are called UCR, Uniform Crime Report, which is established by the FBI. That was set up in the 1960s in order to track crime rates throughout the entire country. It gives you a look at where we are on our UCR index crimes, which is the murder, rape, robbery, grand larceny auto are the index crimes. So those are considered the major felonies. More statistics. We have 5 Crown analysts. Yeah, so one for each district. One also does our gang data. What do you laugh?
No, because I'm an analyst. I was an analyst also.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we have one that, you know, in one of the slower districts, which is just 5 that handles the gang unit tracking.
You
Huh?
Are you hider?
Yes. Yeah, and we work through the Fusion Center. I mean, our analysts are, I was going to say, they're really bad A, but they're really, really good. I mean, incredible. So you see our property crimes on the left versus our violent crimes on the right. And you can watch they're, you know, been pretty much decreasing with a growing population. And we're very, very proud of that. Right? What is that? Is it NASDAQ? So this just gives you the 20-year annual crime rate comparison, and I don't think you can see the small box up there really well. I can't see it on there, it's a glare, so I just population, so you have the population from top to bottom and the growth, and you have the trend lines, and the crime rate is where I want it.
Is the crime rate calculated the same way from 50 years ago, or has it changed?
Well,
I heard that teenagers, when they steal a car, they don't longer go to jail. There are other ways of putting them on the right track, so it doesn't get counted.
okay, so that's two different issues. That's the crime being committed itself and then the actual adjudication of the crime. How you adjudicate the crime doesn't affect whether the crime occurred. So if they stole the car, they stole the car. It's going on our crime stats. Now what happens through the court system, whether or not they're prosecuted for it, is a different matter. We don't actually track our state's prosecutorial percentage because that's not something we manage. Does that make sense? There has been a big push to not decriminalize, it's still a crime, but to divert a lot of the juveniles out of the criminal justice system and into diversion programs where they do things such as community service, get mental health assistance, and things like that, because you're getting kids coming up with, and I'm not saying necessarily subscribe to this, but it's the philosophy behind it, is that they come up with criminal records and now they become difficult people to employ and develop into productive members of society. So instead of that, they try to get to the root cause of what's causing their behavior. A lot of times they determine it's trauma that kids have been exposed to, lack of parenting. There are a lot of single family homes out there. And they try to provide services and get the kids on the right track. And it's not something that's unilaterally, they have to meet, the criteria for that. They can't have prior criminal arrests. So if you're arrested for a felony, if you're not local, there are different reasons why you can and can't get into the diversion program. But we've actually found it's very successful. So it's something we started doing here long before the local circuit with the state attorney's office was doing it. We started it here. But now we're not doing it in-house any longer because it was redundant, because we were doing diversion program here and the state attorney's office was doing the diversion program. So we were duplicating services at that point. So I talked a lot about District 5 already, but there's another look at District 5. When it's going to be fully implemented this year, it'll be up to 24 officers who will be working out in District 5. And when I say 24, that's not 24 at one time, right? Because we have 3 shifts. We have 2 squads on each shift. So that's 4 officers per squad, so you see 4 patrol districts. So that'll be 8 officers day shift, 8 officers midnight shift, 8 officers evening shift between 2 squads and 6 sergeants. So with the growth and the people moving out there, we have to provide services, we have to grow.
Do you take them away from the ones on the east that were there originally?
No, sir, no. So interesting, it's not like we're taking all brand new officers and putting them out there. So according to the collective bargaining agreement with the police officers union, we do every 6 months a bid shift pick. So they can actually go in by seniority and they get to pick where they're working and what shift they're on. So it tends to be a lot of the younger guys end up with the midnight shift because nobody wants it. And, so you'll have senior people working during the day and even across the city because they're gonna pick the day shift. So, make sense? Yeah. So you won't have one district with all the new officers. Doesn't work that way. But you do tend to have more of them overnight.
You basically throw all your keys in a pile and just...
Well, it is by seniority when they enter the
Yeah,
department.
right.
So it goes down by seniority. And
Do you have any senior officers as far as years go?
sure, absolutely. I think we have a 28-year officer in Tom Nichols.
Oh.
Yeah, we have quite a few. It just depends on what age they come and they start and what the pension eligibility will be. But, your typical career is over 25 years.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. And we still get...
Even though you get previous 25 in New York, doesn't make any difference. This is another...
Well, take me, for example. I did 8 in New York.
Yeah.
And I came here, and now today I'm here 21 years, and I don't plan on going anywhere anytime
How
soon.
about to New York?
Is there mandatory retirement age?
No, there is no mandatory retirement age.
Oh.
But I hope someone shows me the door when it's passed me by. So, you know, I came here, and a lot of what we're doing with our recruiting is we're advertising in big cities like New York with big police departments that provide poor working conditions, because we know we have a better product here, and we know we can entice people to come here. I mean, for me, it was a no-brainer. I came down here on vacation. I looked around the city, and I said, oh, my God, why aren't I here? And then I just started making, you know, my rounds and asking my questions, and I found out that it really made a lot of sense, both financial and for quality of life-wise. And I raised my family here.
That picture of, out of tradition of District 5, is that a location to be built, or is that something that is built? And you
That's
move it?
built. That's built.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yeah, but when's the last time you were out there? You been out there lately?
No, I don't live on that side.
No, you take a ride. It's unbelievable what's going on out
Yeah.
there. It's really exciting.
I used to go to the school out there, Palm Point.
Okay.
Is that near Palm Point? I'm just trying to picture where that's at.
You know, so if you get on Gatlin Boulevard and you go out west and it becomes Village Parkway,
Yeah.
okay? If you hit Village Parkway and make a quick right and left, you're gonna pull right in here.
Oh, so it's near Palm Point School.
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah. I was just trying to give you a little bit
Yeah.
more of a pinpoint location on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So that's one of our biggest project right now, the police department. Traffic and bicycle safety. So the cops office, in conjunction with University of North Florida, did, you know, they came up, and DOT came up with something called Vision Zero, which is, you know, we know we're probably never going to have zero pedestrian bicyclist fatalities in a city of this size, but it's our goal because one death is too many. So that's why it's Vision Zero. They've done a lot of studies, and they identified locations where we're most prone to crashes involving pedestrians. And they provide grant money, which we applied for, and we were accepted to focus our enforcements and education in specific areas where we're having pedestrians struck by vehicles. And you'd be amazed, it's not necessarily what you think. It's just people that want to run across a 6-lane road like PSL Boulevard, you know, without going up to the corner. Very common. Another very common way that we're seeing these accidents occur is when the people are pulling out of these big racetracks and Wawas. They're looking left for oncoming traffic. They forget to look right on the sidewalk, and pedestrians will walk right in front of the driver, who now sees it clear on the left, and they pull out. So they're low-speed collisions, right? They're not high speed, and most of them aren't fatalities. We have very few pedestrian fatalities, but one is too many, right? So we've really put a lot of focus into our traffic enforcement and our education in order to reduce fatalities. We are by far below the state average for traffic fatalities. We've been doing about 11 a year for the last 10 years, regardless of the population. And the statewide average is about 17, if I'm off the top of my head. And you look, our number one complaint and concern from residents to the police department is traffic, you know? And you say, okay, well, what can the police department do about traffic and improving conditions on the roadway? You will say, well, you go out and write tickets. So we did. We went out and wrote tickets. If you look at, well, if you look at it, you know, last year we wrote almost 52,000 citations. You got a population at the time about 220. That means 1 in 4 of you got a ticket from us.
How did you know?
I see a hand raised in the back.
I just have a question. Is there a different law for motorcycles?
Regarding,
I see they are driving way over a speed limit.
oh, so that was sarcasm. Motorcycles are tough. I'll tell you why. They present a real problem for us because they don't stop frequently, and pursuits are dangerous. You know, so we turn on our lights, they take off, we get the plate and let them go. And then we go to their house and we follow up later if we can. We get on the radio and try to identify them. We also have cameras out there now that help us get their license plates. But yeah, there are a lot of them that have the inclination that they're not going to stop and they're just going to take off, and they think we can't do anything anyway. So yeah, you see a lot of that. They're very difficult to enforce. And I'm finding that a lot of them are paying the ultimate price too for their actions. Because of all the fatalities that we have, each year. About half are motorcyclists, and the other half will be DUI related. And a lot of times, it's not even the motorcycle's fault. People make left turns, they don't see them, and they make left turns in front of them, and they can't avoid the collision. But sad. Questions on traffic?
Is Terry Russell still out there?
Yes. Yeah. Have you met him? Have you gotten one of his coupons?
Work with him.
Yeah? Yeah, he's awesome. I think he's going to retire, and he's in his last year, and then he's going to go work for the school district, school security. This is his second career, too. He worked for Okeechobee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ma'am.
I have a question about the school bus stops.
Mhm.
Some of those bus stops are in dangerous areas, where the kids have to go, get out, and they have to go cross traffic.
We meet every year along with the Sheriff's Department and St. Lucie County School Safety. And we go over every bus stop, every crossing location, and identify all the dangers. And we allocate crossing guards. So we have 71 part-time crossing guards that we employ with the city. So I would say to that, we work really, really hard to make sure that those conditions don't exist. And we don't have a lot of incidences of students being hit by cars or having problems in traffic. So I think we've been really successful in that regard. But anytime you have a bus stop and major roads and, 240,000 residents, that's a concern for sure.
Yeah.
But we worked really, really hard to make sure that we're not missing anything. So that gets reevaluated every year.
Who decides as to
I'm
where
s-
that?
So sidewalks, we inherited a city that wasn't really master planned to begin with, and I don't think it was intended for a young populace either. And, the sidewalks are something that I know the city's working very, very hard to get ahead of. It's just not something that we can accomplish overnight. It's a need, and it takes time, and it's something that I know we're all determined to make happen. And they are getting laid down all over the place. Who decides? Did someone ask me?
I was saying, who decides, where the bus stops should be? Does the school decide where the bus stops are, or do they discuss it with you as?
They do involve us in that conversation. So as I was saying, we meet with the transportation department and the school security department and us and the sheriff's department. We review every year where those locations are going to be and what crossing guards are needed and what facilities are needed. And the stops are actually placed strategically to minimize the number of streets kids have to cross. So a lot of thought goes into it. I don't do that myself, but
Right.
I've sat in on these meetings and I've had input. And you really do have to do it every year because the way roadways are changing, the traffic flow changes and these conditions change every year. So I'm watching, they update them every year and we have to adjust the number of guards that we have each year too. And they've only gone up. So,
Excuse me, have you added golf carts in there on them, or no?
am I going to talk about golf carts?
Well, I see you got traffic, bicycle, and pedestrian,
Golf carts, no. Golf carts are a vehicle.
and they're supervised by the state
Mm-hmm.
with the ordinance. When are you gonna start closing that down, or you have?
It's a constant conversation. Our position is, no, it's fine. It's a good discussion because everybody wants to run around in golf carts. Golf carts are not legal for street use
Right,
unless they're able to be registered and insured,
right.
and which requires a lot of safety equipment. And they're not allowed on any streets that qualify that's speed of over 30 miles an hour,
Right.
which you will see them do. So we are actively enforcing these violations.
Writing tickets.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do write a lot of tickets, I just say.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. But, it's a constant battle. And then we have a lot of gated communities now popping up within the city. And in order for us to enforce in a gated community, they have to enter into a traffic agreement. They have to bring all their streets up to DOT cert. There's street signs, there's street widths, a lot of things go into that. And that's a big expense. So a lot of the HOAs don't want to do that. And a lot of them don't want us writing their residents tickets either. So, we're seeing some that don't want any enforcement and their golf carts are all over the place. And then we see some where they get tired of their own golf carts and they call us and ask us to come in there. So it's a constant conversation that's coming up continually.
But if you don't do anything, you're gonna become the villages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't think we could ever really be the villages. We're too young and spry now.
So I hope you don't come.
The training facility, I think I pretty much talked you guys to death on that already. If there are any more questions on the training facility. Yes, sir.
In the training facility, do you also train for mental conditions? When you get a call, is it always the police that come, or is it someone else that has experience in working with mental?
There are a lot of trains of thought in regard to that. We're partnered with New Horizons. They have a response team for mental health. We do utilize them. We will be the first to respond, and when we see a mental health condition that isn't potentially violent or doesn't outwardly appear potentially violent, a lot of times we'll reach out to them for a response, and they'll come out and assist us with that. But a lot of our resources are expended towards mental health calls these days. We're averaging about 4 or 5 Baker Acts on a daily basis, and over weekends, the even higher rate. We've probably seen 12 to 14 on weekends throughout. There's been a national push to de-institutionalize mental health, and they don't put people away in hospitals like they used to and keep them in. They do a lot of outpatient work, and that makes it difficult for medication compliance, because outpatients have a tendency to not track their own intake or not comply, and we end up with a lot of crises. I mean, I've been to a couple of suicide by cops myself in my career, so I take that really, really seriously. And we do a lot of training in handling these calls, not just with our tactics, but our interpersonal skills. And autism's become huge too. We've seen a big national rise in autistic children and now adults. So it's another thing that we work really hard through training on. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Recruitment and retention, I guess I talked about this one a lot too. Any questions on that? Oh, we expanded our take-home vehicle program. We found that in order to be competitive with other agencies, benefits aside from just salary were very important to this younger generation. Driving your vehicle to and from work is a huge benefit. Think about the cost savings. It's also a benefit to our community because we have, instead of our police cars sitting in a parking lot here, they're out on the street and they're moving around and they create a presence. Mere presence of police deters crimes. We know this to be a fact. So it also gets our resources out away from one location. So God forbid we have a natural disaster here at the police department or something, we don't lose all our cars in one shot. But in doing that, other agencies, we used to allow just 10 miles outside of city limits for take-home vehicles. And we were the strictest with that of any agency on the Treasure Coast. So when we were, recruits were coming and they were like, well, what's your take-home policy? Because they want to know if they live in Vero Beach, if they have the ability to take their cars home. And we didn't allow that. So we recently expanded on our borders where we allow take-home vehicles, and it made us a lot more competitive for police officers. So we've had a little more success with the recruiting in that regard. That's the last slide. But I'm still here, so. Yes, sir.
I have a silly question. I think it was last week we had the Parks Department, we had the police there. What's all the gear that they have? I mean, they look.
Cops love their toys. We love our trinkets, we love our gadgets, we love our toys. What's on their vest? I guess the taser is the biggest, most obvious thing, and it's becoming larger. Placement of the taser is very, very important on a police uniform. I think a lot of you probably saw the incident that happened last year when a female officer drew a firearm thinking she had her taser in her hand, and she deployed it and accidentally shot somebody. So we teach a cross draw, so your taser never comes from the same side of your body as your firearm. So you have to consciously know you're going to your non-lethal side for a taser. So you'll see a taser is either up on the vest or right here on the belt, but it's always opposite side of the firearm. So whether you have a right-handed or a left-handed officer, the taser is going to be on the weak side. They also have pepper spray. They have batons, which are collapsible. A lot of them have flashlights. A lot of them now have these new safety, angel safety lights, guardian lights we got to illuminate them at nighttime. Naturally handcuffs. I always carried at least 2 pairs because I like to arrest a lot of people. What am I missing? Oh, God, body cam, thank you. So we're in the world of body cams now. So, you know, everything's on camera. So, yeah, we went to the body cam 2 years ago. It gets more and more and more, you know. And things are starting to go from the waist now to the vest because bad backs were starting to develop. You know I pay the price every once in a while for everything I had on my waist for years and years. And getting in and out of cars and leaning up against it. And we're finding guys are a little healthier and having less injuries when the stuff's off the belt and onto the vest.
With the body cams, do you have to store all of that footage and keep it all? 'Cause that must be
Right, so Axon is the leader in the industry, and they have everything cloud-based. So we pay for the storage annually. So it goes, we bring our body cams in, they get docked, it gets automatically uploaded once, because the officers, I'll try to tell you a little story. Officers on a scene, does a traffic stop, completes the traffic stop. They have a phone on their vest too, right? The phone comes off, the phone has an app, it tacks into the camera, they put in what type of call it was, they put the information, the case number gets assigned to that film, and then at the end of the day, when they come in, they put their camera on the charging dock that's outside, and it gets uploaded directly to the cloud. So it gets stored. We don't have servers here that keep that information. So that's a huge task. We have to have employees here just to manage the public information requests, because all that's public record, and all that can be requested on a daily basis. So we have the people here to process that, and it's a big undertaking, but I'm glad you asked about that.
How many years do you have to keep it?
I want to say that it's indefinite now for body cams. Don't quote me, okay? Yeah. A lot of reports and records we can purge after 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not an expert on public records law. I would open up a little handy-dandy book on my desk. But I believe with the digital data, the expectation is you got to maintain it.
Wow.
So that's the world we're in. You can't not have it anymore. Because you have a critical incident, the first thing everybody wants to know is where's the video, and if you say, well, we don't have that, well, why not? What are you hiding from us? You know, you need to be transparent.
Yeah,
It's just
the way it is.
it's the way it is. And you know what? We find that it works to our advantage 9 out of 10 times. You know, usually we did the right thing. It's very rare when we didn't, and it usually exonerates officers. So, anything else? You guys have been a great group. I've enjoyed you. Thank you very much.
I was going to say, can we get one last round of applause?
Appreciate you.
Great. Well, he will be back up here in a couple minutes to introduce the canine unit. So they will be brought into the room, in a couple minutes here. So he will be back here throughout the night, so you'll definitely see him get here shortly. However, I do want to go ahead and take a quick moment to introduce a very special guest that has actually joined us this evening. He's actually all the way in the back of the room there. Councilman David Pickett is in the back of the room. And to provide a little bit of background, Councilman Pickett is actually a veteran of the United States Army. Highly sensitive roles within the Air Defense Artillery Corps, the Military Police Corps, and finally as a logistician and transportation specialist. After serving 2 combat tours in the Middle East, he retired from the U.S. Army in 2015 And since then, he's actually been an active member in the community, serving first as a volunteer, a coach, and mentor with local little leagues and football programs. Once his children grew, David became increasingly involved in helping to ensure that Port St. Lucie continues to remain a beautiful place to live and work. So here tonight to provide some remarks to the class, we have our very own Councilman David Pickett. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to City University. I want to commend you for taking the step forward and learning about our community. I, too, sat in your seat back during COVID. Actually, I sat at home during COVID. And we did the same thing through the computer. So we didn't have that interaction that you folks have here, where you're able to talk and talk amongst yourself and make some new friends and get a tour of things. But by far, the police department was the best seminar that we had. And then, have you done the public works portion yet?
Next week.
Next week. Oh, you're gonna love that, especially if you like trucks and stuff like that. You get to see all the equipment that the city uses to keep our drains clean and keep the drainage ditches and swales and all that stuff clean. But anyway, the chief took a bunch of things that I wanted to talk about. That's what I get for being late. So, how many new residents do we have here? How many people has within the last 5 years have just moved to Port St. Lucie? Big majority of you. Well, welcome to Port St. Lucie. So, what brought you down here?
Warm weather.
Warm weather, yeah. I was in a girlfriend? Oh, okay. I was, let's see, it was 1990, 91. I come down here. I joined the Army, and I was from Indiana. And I joined the Army in Indiana, and I left, and I went to Germany. And while I was stationed in South Carolina, my stepfather come, and he stopped by, and I'm like, what are you doing here? It was unannounced, right? What are you doing here? He says, we're moving to Florida. Oh, okay. It's nice of y'all to move to Florida when I joined the Army. But anyway, they moved down here. So I come down here in 1990. I went to Korea and then come back home. So I come to visit my family, and I was due to get out of the Army. And I come down here, and it was Christmas time. Guns N' Roses was playing in Miami, so me and my brother went to go see Guns N' Roses at the Orange Bowl. That tells you how long ago that was. And I told my brother, I said, I don't feel like going back up there, man. So I went back to Fort Campbell. I finished out my initial tour and moved down here. The idea for me was, I was 23, 24 at the time. I was going to move to Miami, and where all the party and everything. Because at the time, I'd been watching Miami Vice on TV, right? So I'm going to move to Miami. And so my sister lived here, my mom lived here, and so I stopped to see them. And my sister says, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Miami. She says, hey, you big dumb, you know there's a hurricane down there, right? Hurricane coming. I said, no, I don't, because Kentucky, Tennessee, you don't really pay attention to weather in Florida. I mean, up north, you don't pay attention to weather down here, right? So I had no clue. So I ended up staying here, and here I am. I've been here ever since. That was 30 years ago. But this is a great place to live, raise a family, great place to live. And the thing I liked about it was I was halfway between Miami and Orlando, so I could take my kids. We could go down to Miami, we could go to Orlando, go to the parks and stuff. And I cannot say enough good things about our police department. They are one of the top police departments in the state of Florida, and they're one of the top police departments in the country. And we're what, sixth safest city in Florida? That's in part to our police department. And that's why when it comes time on the council to give our police department what they need to succeed, being a former military policeman and a former military guy, I have no problems about, yes, got my vote. I mean, within reason, you know. Hey, I got a question. How many people knew we had a boat? Anybody? Did you use it? It wasn't until...
I didn't use it. They chased me, yes.
I chased you, okay. It wasn't until we was going through the budget, or I was going through the budget, looking through my budget book, and I was like, what the heck, we have a boat? So I called Del Toro, I said, hey, Chief, we got a boat? He goes, yeah, we got a boat. I didn't even know we had a boat, and I've been here for 30 years, so. But anyway, I know they got some demonstrations lined up for you, and I know when I was in military police school, Chief was talking about the one guy the one police officer who was here for 2 weeks, and so this isn't for him. When I first went to military police school, I didn't think nothing about it. You know, you want to get wait for me to get promoted. Okay, yeah, I'll take it. I'll do it. And so I go to military police school, and so we're sitting there, and the instructor says, "In this course, this is going to happen. Da 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 da. You're going to get tased. You're going to get pepper sprayed." I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute." So I know they got some demonstrations lined up for you. So does anybody want to get? Anybody want to volunteer to get tased? I'll tell you what. When they tased me. They tased me and pepper sprayed me like a day or so apart. And if I had to have my choice, y'all, honest to gosh, take a tase. Take the tase. It lasts about 8 seconds, done. And none of this stuff you see on TV where you fall over and you pass out. No, your body's gonna lock up and you're gonna shake. But it's you're gonna live through it.
It's like a COVID shot.
Yeah, it's like the COVID shot. But when they pepper sprayed me, you had 10 stations you had to fight through. So they pepper spray you, and the whole thing there is to get you sprayed so you know what it feels like, and you can continue to fight if you had to, and subdue your subject, right? So they pepper sprayed me, and I went to my first station, and my eyes are burning. I fight through my 10 stations. I handcuff all these guys, and then at the very last, you go over and you rinse your face off, and that was at 1 o'clock. I was the first person to get sprayed. That was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 5 o'clock the next day, my eyes are still burning. So if I was to ever get pulled over, John, if you ever pulled me over and said, I'm going to pepper spray you, yes, sir, what do you want? But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to City University. You're in good hands with the police department. The neighborhood services people, they have some great stuff lined up for you. Enjoy yourself. If you need me, I'm right across the street. Call me, text me. My phone number is 201-9570. That's my personal phone right here. And if you need anything, just give me a call, and I'll try to help you out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, everyone, are you guys ready to meet the K9 unit? Yeah. I see some heads shaking there. Awesome. Well, we are going to go ahead and bring him in here in a second. Before we do that, I'm going to actually go ahead and turn over to our K9 trainer, Mr. Will Harris, who's going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what he does and the K9 unit. Welcome, Will.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're too kind. Keep it going, keep it going. So my name is Officer Will Harris. I've been with the Port St. Lucie Police Department for almost 21 years. I've been in law enforcement for 25 years. Don't let this baby face fool you. Yeah, hopefully it stays this way. And I've been in K9 for almost 18 years. I lost track of that time. And in that time frame, I've worked 3 patrol dogs, which I'll explain what that is in a minute, and a bloodhound. Currently, we have 5 dog teams. 3 of them are narcotics and patrol dogs, and then one of them, which is mine, is an explosive detection dog, and he also is a patrol dog. They've got a lot of jobs they do. I won't make you do all the little games I play with the kids, unless you want to play the kid games, I'll play with you. But we have a lot of jobs that we do with those dogs that require a very special dog. A lot of times we get questions of people like, oh, I have a German Shepherd. I'd like to donate to be a police dog. And it just doesn't work that way. Just like people, just like professional athletes, not everybody's cut out to be an NFL player. Not every dog's cut out to be a patrol dog. So they go through a very rigorous process, selection process through a vendor that we get them from, and then through school and such. So we'll talk about that. I know we're kind of short on time. I do like to do question and answer. So if you have any questions, I don't even care if it's about your dog at home. I'm warning you, I'll break your heart. They're selfish little creatures. They're not what you think, in a good way. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them as we go along. So, like I said, we have 5 dogs in our unit. 1 purebred Belgian Malinois, which is my dog. I happen to think the Mals are the best dogs, horrible pets, great working dogs. 1 purebred German Shepherd, and the other 3 dogs are like a hybrid or essentially a mutt. They're a combination of Belgian Malinois, Dutch Shepherds, and German Shepherds. We switched several years ago, probably well over a decade ago. You started seeing the German Shepherd being kind of phased out as we know it out of police work. And if you think by the AKC standard of what a German Shepherd looks like, that big barrel chest and those itty bitty hips, that was bred in for a look, and unfortunately it kind of ruined the dog breed. So when you see our German Shepherds that we have now, a lot of times people don't believe that they're purebred. They actually are. It's what we're getting from the Eastern Bloc of Europe. That's more what the dog's supposed to look like, more streamlined from shoulder to hip, a much healthier, much more athletic dog. So in the process of that, a lot of vendors, to keep from overbreeding because of supply and demand, they started crossbreeding the dogs, trying to get the athleticism of a Malinois with the temperament of a German Shepherd and all different kinds of things. So most of our dogs that we have right now are a crossbreed. The other real reason that they do that is because of overbreeding. You end up with neurological issues and things like that with the dogs. So we come from we get our dogs from a very prestigious breeder. Another misnomer is, we have people that want to adopt dogs out to the agency. Another misnomer is that dogs within the United States are available. They're really not. The best breeding programs are overseas. The Europeans are much more willing to cull a litter, unfortunately, things that we can't do and wouldn't do here, and control the breeding so that they get a good workable line. They pay attention much more to the genetics. So it's not just about a paint job on the dog or that it looks a certain way. It's that it's got good, strong workability. So most of the dogs that we get through a breeding program in the Eastern Bloc of Europe that is run by a gentleman named Tony Guzman. There's a plug for him on the camera if you're watching Tony. Just kidding. At Metro-Dade Canine, we've had a relationship with them for over 20 years. They're incredible people. They import the dogs. We go down there. We do a selection process with the dogs. And basically what we're looking for is temperament. These dogs are not socialized prior to being assigned to a handler. They're taken in and out of a kennel. They're put on a bite, they're taken off a bite, they're put back in a kennel, and the next dog is taken out. And they do that on purpose so that when the dog does get assigned to a handler that that's the only bond and typically the strongest bond that dog is going to have is with that handler as they go through training. So when we go down there, we evaluate the dogs based upon their sociability. Most all of us have families. We don't want to have a Tasmanian devil released in the house. So we do check the dog's temperament, make sure the dog can be reasonably safely handled by the right person. And then from that point forward, most of what we look at is the dog's ability to use their nose. The olfactory sense is far more valuable. Everybody gets caught up in, the size of the dog, the speed of the dog, the hitting force of the dog, all the cool guy stuff. But the reality is, if the dog doesn't have a nose, we can't work it. So a dog's sense of smell is approximately 40 times stronger than a human sense of smell. And you'll hear all kinds of crazy things. People say, it's 400 million times. Well, they have several million more scent receptors in their nose, but it's about 40 times stronger, which is very, very significant. And that's not even what makes their nose so incredible. They have a special organ in their nose it's kind of similar to, like a reptile has the Jacobson organ. It's called the vomeronasal organ. That organ actually allows a dog to smell like we see, or similar to how we see. So to kind of put it in perspective, if everybody were to close their eyes and open them and then try to say what images they're taking in, we could break it down to something as simple as color. We could break it down to something more broad like shapes or actual objects or several objects at the same time, or down to a single hair. Dogs can do the same thing. They could smell, if everybody were to sniff right now, that's what I make the kids do, right? If everybody were to sniff right now, you would smell what smells like maybe a little bit of food, a little bit of the room, maybe the person next to you. Sorry if you're sitting next to the stinky kid, but you smell kind of an odor that just smelled like the room. To a dog, they're able to smell each individual thing at the same time. And more remarkably, they're able to retain an odor that is valuable to them and purge the other odors out of their nose through that special organ they have. So it makes them incredible tools for us, and like I said, that's the most important thing. So we look for a dog, when we evaluate a dog, that will hunt exclusively off of its nose and not transition to its eyes. So we go through a bunch of exercises, because what we don't want is a dog that's very visual and not using that sense that God gave them that makes them so remarkable. With that remarkable nose, we're able to find narcotics on the streets, contrary to what most people believe, the dogs, this is how incredible it is. The dogs do not actually locate narcotics, they locate narcotic odor. They do not actually locate explosives, they locate explosive odor. And to give you an idea how remarkable that is, when you cook popcorn, right, in the microwave, and you eat the popcorn, and you throw the bag out, and you take that bag and you put it outside in the trash, the house still smells like popcorn. The dog, to a much lesser degree, can tell us if there's residue of narcotics or residue of explosives in an area without the actual item having to be there. So that's how remarkable, incredible the nose is. And to kind of put in perspective, anybody ever seen gunpowder before? Right? One flake, one little granule of gunpowder put on a piece of tape in a movie theater auditorium, the dog was able to locate it in a matter of seconds. So that's what we're talking about. That's how incredible they are. We use that nose for other remarkable things. I'm saying remarkable a lot. Sarge, you're remarkable. Yeah, remarkable. So, we can use that to find human odor. We can use that to find human odor that's latent human odor that's left behind on an article of evidence. So if someone were to come in here and steal your phone and toss it out in the woods, the dog would be able to find it because of the preponderance of human odor that's on it. More impressive than that is they have the capabilities of being scent discriminating. So when we go and look for a person, we train those dogs to stay on the odor that they started with. So if you think about like the old movies where they take the pair of underwear, the skivvies, and they hold it up and let the dog smell it, and then the dog finds that person. That's not always a reality in our world. People aren't usually kind enough when they commit a crime to leave an article of evidence behind that we could sniff and find them. So we work on the principle of containment. Officers will come in, they'll close off that area, won't let anybody in, and the dog will track and follow to completion the odor that they started on, the freshest human odor available to completion. And we train that on a regular basis. Even today, right before we came here, we were training in a highly trafficked area, and the dogs will track past people that are not their quarry to find their quarry. And so when it comes down to training and getting a dog to do this, I want you to understand how, what's another synonym, impressive that is, instead of remarkable. A dog in the wild, we don't teach a dog to do anything. What we do is we restructure and rehome that dog to do what we want it to do based upon its natural abilities. So a dog in the wild, if it's tracking and looking for a rabbit, right, and another slower, fatter rabbit or whatever crosses its path, the dog's not going to waste time to continue to look for the rabbit that was more difficult quarry. They're going to take the quarry that crossed their path. Our dogs do not do that. Our dogs will look and locate the human odor that we started on, which is essential to what we do. And there's been a lot of growth and change in the canine world in my time. It used to be, we'll put a dog down on the ground, and whoever came across their path was potentially the quarry. We don't train that way anymore. We don't work that way anymore. So to give you an idea on how we accomplish all these tasks with the dogs, once they're selected, they come home, they go through an in-house. We put it on, here at Port St. Lucie Police Department. I did the last school with the last 2 dogs that came in. A academy. These dogs go through 600 hours of training. That's consecutive, Monday through Friday, all day long, working with these dogs, teaching them how to track, which is following human odor that is left behind on the ground to the source of the quarry. Area searches, which is using the wind current to locate somebody hiding in a confined area. Building searches was using the internal air current within the building to find somebody. A dog can search a building this size in a fraction of the time it would take a SWAT team to clear this building, which is why we like to tease those guys and say that we're so much cooler than they are. So you can use that when you go out and talk to them later, like, well, you guys are all right, but canine, they're cool. They just have these incredible capabilities with their nose to do that, and they learn this all during school. They also have that time to bond with the handler. Now, as they go through school, a dog is not considered a police dog until they have attempted and completed their first certification. So at the end of the 600 hours, the handler will take the dog, they go through a certification process that tests them in each of those disciplines. So the dog has to be able to release on command from a bite, the dog has to be able to recall, which, think about this, if you put the most high-value treat for your dog on the floor and you told him to go get it, and right before he put his little mouth on it, you said, come here, that's what we do. These dogs, the thing that they want to play with most is that decoy in the bite suit, and the dog has to be able to be sent and then recalled back to the start-finish position without biting or engaging that suit. During certification, they have to be able to prove proficiency in tracking, and during the tracking certification, there are contaminated odors, so other people will cross-track and walk through that area. The dog has to be successful in finding the right person, and they have to do a narcotics or explosive detection. And, what's that? Yeah, you can bring one in. This is a dog, everybody. Yeah. This is Ronan. Ronan is one of my newest students, although Robbie is a salty dog veteran here. He's on his second dog. So once they complete certification, and we love certification day, don't we? We love it. Yeah. It's the most nervous day of a handler's career. Once they complete certification, they're able to, by department policy, they're able to work the road in tandem with the officer where the good stuff happens. Here's the thing about canine that makes it arguably second to only aviation, the most technical field in law enforcement. These guys have to certify twice a year, every year, for the duration of the career of the dog's life to prove that the dog is continuously able to do the job. On top of that, they're required to train weekly, and then on top of that, I require them to train daily. Every day they're out with the dog, they have to do some form of training while they're not working calls and document that training. The reason for that is, unlike us, and this is something that I usually stir or kick a hornet's nest when I say this in front of a crowd of people. I'm assuming everybody in here is a dog lover. Any cat people? Oh, I'm sorry. But so contrary to what we believe about dogs, we put these human characteristics on dogs, and we like to believe that they're like Disney characters, that we're going to go outside in a meadow and sing with a dog, and the squirrels are going to come down. The reality is dogs are in it for themselves. They are not as cognitive as we are. So what they do is they operate off of shaped or conditioned behavior, or conditioned responses. So with that, a dog will only perform something so long as it's productive for the dog. So if I teach a dog to do this incredible task, and then I no longer require the dog to do that in exchange for something the dog thinks is valuable, like food or a reward of some kind, that skill set will diminish rapidly because it's not necessary for the dog's survival. So everything that we do and the whole principle that we teach on these dogs is offering the dog something that the dog believes, for lack of a better term, in its core, that it needs to do it in order to survive. So instead of tracking a rabbit to eat, we teach these dogs that they now track something, which you have to understand how impressive this is. Very few predators, I mean, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is the crazy honey badger, is going to go after something larger than itself. We teach a dog to not only track, but to hunt down and search and possibly have a violent encounter with a human being, which isn't natural to them. And it's also a larger, being or thing that they would ever hunt to eat. We do that based on that same principle, though, of hunting a rabbit. They'll track, they'll hunt them down, and at the end, do you have your toy on you?
I don't. I just ran it though.
So we have a jute fire hose tug toy, ultimately is their toy. They only use it for training. The dog gets to chew on that tug with us. It's very visceral for the dog, and it actually, for the dog, teaches the dog that it gets to hunt this person down, right? But then the reward exchange comes from playing with us with this tug toy, which they get to eviscerate, and then like two wolves, we run that toy back to the den or the vehicle, and we put them up, and they surrender to us, always keeping that rank and always keeping that primitive nature, intact. By teaching these dogs to do this in a game and not teaching them to do this from a defensive nature, which is one of the drives that a dog has, the instinctive nature to defend itself, by teaching them to do this in prey drive, we make a confident dog, we make a reliable dog, we make a dog that if we were to cut him loose in this room right now, he'd walk around and nobody would have a problem, which is very important because anybody who's been in the police canine world as long as I have, I remember the dogs of yesteryear that you couldn't get near, that they would leave in a garage during the week and only take them, on the weekends and then only take them out. It's a horrible way to do things, and this police department, we integrate the dogs fully into our families and stuff. So I know I gave you kind of the Reader's Digest version. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer. Oh, good. This is fun. Go ahead.
As a large scene, how do you get them to key in on what you want?
So excellent. So training. I put these guys through more stress and anxiety, I think, on a Wednesday than they'll ever face on the most horrific scene of their life. And it's essential. We have to be able to operate under extreme circumstances, and we need the dogs to be able to operate in that. So the very first part of this is the dog has to be cued into us. Dogs, there's science behind it. As your cortisol levels peak, the dogs detect it, they live off their nose, they perceive, so to give you an idea, and I'm going in a little circle here, but I'm gonna give you a great answer, okay? I sound like a politician up here, right? So I'm gonna reduce taxes, blah, blah, blah. No, so 8 to 12% of a dog's brain is devoted to the olfactory sense, the sense of smell. To give you an idea how remarkable that is, the human brain, as complex as it is, and as many awesome things as we can do, I mean, we can build and fly aircraft, we can do incredible things. We don't have 8 to 12% of our brain devoted to any singular task. So think about that. So when the olfactory alarm goes off and your cortisol levels are up, if you're under stress, that dog's performance will severely drop. The leadership will be sensed, the leadership arc is off. The dog will now become more defensive or more anxious because of you. So the very first part about getting that dog to hone in that chaos is to have a calm, seasoned, talented canine handler. Somebody who, in that chaos, can stay calm and get the dog focused on tasks. The next thing we do, containment, is everything for us. So as you can imagine, when we first get to the scene and it's chaotic, you got to get in, make sure the scene is safe. As soon as security is established, and before people are going to the scene, other guys are going, or other officers are going to set up a perimeter around the area to get containment. Our hope with containment is that we can create a barrier enough that makes the person go to ground and actually hide. Once we've determined the scene is safe, we do an inventory of everybody that's there, asking them where they went, where they walked, what they touched, and we go just outside that area and we start working. Now we know that any human scent that's within that area that's unaccounted for is going to be our mark, and once the dog can cue in on that, and we'll literally walk a circle in an area until the dog picks it up. Once the dog picks it up, we're locked in and we're on it. So that's kind of, again, the layman's terms of it, but anybody else have a question? Yes, yes, ma'am.
Are the dogs grown? Are they fully grown, or they?
So by the time a dog gets to us, the youngest that we've ever taken is just under a year old. The more typical is 1.5 to 2 years old before they ever even have that first interaction with someone who's going to be their handler. Ronan is 3?
That's right.
Ronan's 3 years old. Yeah, so, we don't typically get a dog until they're 1.5 to 2 years old. There are other departments and sheriff's offices that have puppy programs. It's just the expense. Come in here, show everybody that sign. Yeah. I love you too, buddy. Yes. Yes. So, oh boy. So, typically we don't get them till they're 1.5 to 2 years old. And the average work life, we're committed to a minimum of 5 years when we first come into canine. So if you're like me and everybody in the unit right now, they are, we pick our guys, you're really giving up the desire to promote or to do something else. We get so hooked to this, and it's a long learning curve. The first dog that you work, you really have 2 left feet. It's really trying to get, you're talking interspecies communication. If you're not a hunter and you're not a woodsman, you better learn how to be one quick, because we spend a lot of time in the muckety muck. There's a big learning curve. The adrenaline rush, it's like nothing you've ever seen. It's like playing hide and go seek, as an adult, which is great for children like us. So it really is a sacrifice and a reward to do canine, because you're looking at a minimum of 5 years for the first dog, and then if you're going for another one, that's 10 years of your career minimum, and then you end up like where I'm at, 18 years of my career having been in canine. Yes, sir.
Are the canines trained in a different language than?
Yes. So here's the thing. Most people ask me, and I like the way that you phrase that, because most people say, "What language does your dog speak?" He speaks dog. So language is not overtly important to a dog. They're visual learners, so it takes several thousand repetitions of a visual cue paired with a verbal command. We typically stick with the language of origin of where the dog came from because their basic commands were already started. And then, however, I changed mine. I've been doing Dutch my whole career because my dogs came from Holland. My last Malinois, even though he's a Dutch dog, he came from the Eastern Bloc, and I wasn't wanting to learn a whole new thing. So instead of learning Czech, I stuck with Dutch. But yes, we do teach them in a different language. Anybody else?
Is he signing autographs?
Is he signing autographs? You can definitely pet him. If he could sign autographs, then he could drive, and I'd be out of a job. So we can't let him do it. Yes, sir.
I have one quick question. So, when they retire the dogs, do they have to retrain them at all?
No, so here's the thing. Yes and no. Depending on the program that a dog comes from. In our program, I'm very confident. We have a very sound program in the way that we train these dogs. These dogs have never experienced any unpleasantries to get them to do the things they do. So these dogs have never been beaten other than the times that they've had tussles with suspects. These dogs have never been abused. They're not trained in defense, which we were talking about earlier. We don't try to put the dog back on its heels to get the aggression out. We train them in prey. So they pretty much do go into their next life with us as a retired dog pretty easily. I've retired 3 dogs. So the transition is in the repetition of now not doing these things with them. So it's not that we have to recondition them or retrain them. It's just it is an adjustment for the dog when they're not going to work every day. What's that? Yes, my last retired dog passed away a year ago on Thanksgiving morning. It was tough. Don't make me talk about it. I'll get all mushy, tired, you know. But they do make that assessment well. I know with my dog, and I know I worked with Officer Gibbins a little bit and his dog. I did a lot to transfer the responsibility over to my family to try to help him be a home house dog. But the very first day that I came home and I left him at home for the day, I called my son and said, hey, can you run something out to the police car for me? And as I was driving away, I look in the side view mirror and I see my son running down the street. I look in the other side view mirror, my dog was running down the street. After the police car, I let him in, last ride, buddy, you know. So there is an adjustment in that way, but as far as them assimilating with the family, my oldest is going to be 24 now, and he's grown up with. I got 2 18-year-olds and almost 19 in college. I got 13-year-olds. I got kids everywhere. But they've grown up with these dogs, little babies in diapers around these dogs, and I've never had an incident. None of us have. So it's in the training process and the philosophy that we follow here that there's not really a lot of work to do to recondition them. Yes, ma'am.
So do you have them specialized, like search and rescue dog or crime dog, you know?
So yes, there's specializations. We do not have search and rescue dogs at this moment in time, but they are every one of our police dogs that we have at the PSLPD currently are all patrol dogs, which means that they can track for fleeing suspects. They can do article searches, area searches of the stuff that we spoke about earlier, and then they have a specialty. Like my dog is a explosive detection dog. The other 4 dogs are narcotics detection dogs. There are more specialized dogs than that. We just don't have any like cadaver dogs and search and rescue dogs. We hope to have a bloodhound program again one day. That's a very, very incredible specialty. Tracking for missing endangers. But yeah, the 5 that we have now, it's patrol and explosives or patrol and narcotics. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What kind of diet are these?
These dogs are fed, exercised, and treated like professional athletes. They're my life. I'm getting older, and we all are kind of, except for Corey. Corey's still the kid. But, this dog has to be in top performance, top shape, top conditioning. So these dogs are fed a very good diet. Currently, we all switched, believe it or not, to, I never thought I would say this in a public forum, but we all switched to Purina product. We feed Purina Pro Plan. We found with all the bougie foods, all the high-end foods, the dogs were getting kidney issues, stuff like that. We went to Purina. We started reading up on the science they actually put into their performance line of food. It's probably one of the best foods out there. I expect Purina, I expect a kickback for this. No, one of the best foods. The dogs are thriving on it. But kibble alone's not enough to really sustain a dog. We do feed our dogs a variety or like a raw food diet. We supplement with sardines. We supplement with yogurt, plain yogurt, frozen turkey necks, a lot of that kind of stuff. We do fast our dogs for a 24-hour period once a week. Their digestive system, they're not meant to eat every day. They're hunting, foraging predators, so they eat as eating's available. So to feed them every day, it's just not good for their digestive system. It's also kibble, even as good as it can be, it's not a high quality food. So to give their digestive system time to purge. The other reason we fast, and we all typically fast on Wednesday. Wednesday's a training day. We don't want to take them after a rigorous day of training, put food in their belly, and then potentially have bloat or some other gastric issue. So they fast once a week. And in commitment to this craft, I fast for a 24-hour period once a week too. We do it on the same day, my dog and I. So
That's why you look so young.
that's why I look so young. Fasting and lots of kids everywhere. Not really everywhere. They're all from the same source.
There you go.
Is that the right way to say it?
Off. Well,
This is what they live for. This slimy, gross. You gave me a wet one,
sorry.
dude. I'd pass it around, but it's gross. But that's that. That's it. Folks, I could stay and talk to you all night about dogs. This is great. I want you to know you have the best canine unit in, I would arguably say in the state, if not more than the state. These guys work very hard. They're out there for you guys. Anytime you see them, they're more than capable of answering any questions that you have. Anytime you see them, ask them if you pet the dog. They love that.
yes. We'd like
Love
to pet
that.
a dog. Anybody want to pet a dog? I'll run him by. I'll walk him by everybody.
All right. I'll tell you this, there may be agencies that will do it, but I would never give up my partner. My last dog worked for 9 years. I've been to battle with that dog. Nobody else was going to take him home. So we retire the dogs to us.
We are actually out of time. Unfortunately, we have to move on, but can we give one last round of applause to our canine?